Good evening, everybody. Now, tonight's talk is about what I have myself discovered from the Buddha's teaching. Something that I find that is useful. Which helped me a lot. The Buddha is somebody very, very special. First of all, there are now many of us who come to hear about the Buddha, his teaching, and his practice. Then there are many of us, who think one day, I might like to become a Buddha, and I'll come one day when the teaching is lost, and then start a sangha, community, and rediscover this Dhamma, There'll be billions of people, who would like to have this aspiration, to become the Buddha and help people in future, whenever it is, in an aeon's time or whatever is it. But it takes an aeon to become a Buddha because you have to go through life, perfecting yourselves, what in Buddhism we call parami, there are 10 of them, perfections of the parami. We have to go through all this, and then of the billions, people start dropping off. It's too difficult, to become a Buddha. It takes too long now, This perfection is too extreme, So, and then you have maybe one or two remaining, Then he, with the predictions of previous Buddha, he becomes the Buddha. So when he becomes a Buddha, he waits until a particular time is right before he gets reborn. The situation must be right, in a sense that when he comes down, some people will recognize that he has these 32 marks of perfections, So that's the right time for the Buddha to be born on and earth, in the future, whatever that kind of earth is that we do. So when the Buddha is born, he is a bodhisattva, which is different from the bodhisattva you may know from Mahayana, This is just a name for somebody who is destined to become a Buddha. In the Theravada tradition, there is only one Buddha, in on earth, and that Buddha is destined to become that bodhisattva. There's only one bodhisattva on earth, and he is destined to be the Buddha. So to become a Buddha, he has to go through the difficulties, that is encountered by a normal human being to really experience the life, as a man, as a person, as a member of society on earth, So he grows up, has parents, friends, families, cousins, and then he gets married, and then of course he has children as well. And then he comes to know real suffering, suffering in life, But he's very sensitive to this suffering. He has a lot of compassion. So he's aim is to reduce the suffering that he finds in himself, you know. So he have this confidence, there must be an answer to this suffering. Even old age is suffering, death is suffering. It doesn't accept, that we have to grow old, that we have to die, that kind of thing, most people accept that life, but for a bodhisattva, he doesn't accept that. So he goes out on his, there must be absolute truth, an absolute solution. So he will do all these practices to its extreme, He tries, to fast, without eating for many, many days. Normal human being cannot do that, because he's a bodhisattva. He can do extreme practices to find out whether that is the solution. And then, of course, we know the history. He will always find the solution. And what is his solution? His solution is to eradicate suffering. There is suffering. So he comes up with this Four Noble Truth. It is something which is truthful. So the first noble truth is that there is suffering. And of course, he knows what the cause of suffering. There is a cause of suffering. And the cause of suffering is craving. And the third noble truth is there is an end of suffering. That means there is a solution. And finally, there is a path to the end of suffering. So that's the fourth noble truth. So every time that he taught, or a future Buddha will teach, is the path to the end of suffering. Now, the Buddha is, don't forget, the start as a bodhisattva. I mean, he's a human being. He suffers. So the first thing is, like any good teacher, he teach you self-help. Nowadays, you have all this self-help book. So you can say the Buddha, is one of the earliest self-help teacher, right? So he teach you how to reduce your suffering in the beginning. So he said, well, you have to practice generosity, because when you practice generosity, then you do not hold tightly to things that are very dear to you. We are very dear to ourselves. Our families are dear to us. Now, probably the third thing, which is less dear but no still dear to us, is our property, our money. So we can start from that, like generosity, offering dana to the triple gem, offering help to people, offering help to the sangha or in the monastery, everything. So that way, we learn to give. We think in terms of giving rather taking. So in any argument, we can be generous and we can give way to and forgive. So all this practice of generosity develops us differently. First thing, it reduces our desire to hold on to things as important as mine, Without this, I'm nobody. I can't let go of this. This is important to me. This fixation about this. And the second part about giving is that when you give, you get return back. Multiples. 8 times back, 16 times back. Something like that. I can't remember what the sutta says. It depends on whether it is spontaneous giving or you're prompted to give. So what the Buddha taught at that time is not about theory about how the universe is, how we evolve, and what is real in this world, and so on. What it is, what Buddha taught at that time, and what we can learn from the Dhamma is self-help. How to reduce our suffering. That's the first thing. And the second thing is when we are a little bit happier, we can learn self-development. How to develop our character, how to develop our mind, how to develop our heart. So that's the second thing. And then finally, when you get onto that, then he teach you self-liberation, right? Which means to reach a state of being unborn, right? And everybody associate that as nibbana. It is nibbana. So when you reach this state where you realize that you have entered this state of unborn, then you would not die because you're no longer subject to birth. So you are permanent in that way. Don't ask me, how this is. You have to find out for yourself, right? It's beyond, our worldly understand, how this thing works. So you can say just reach a state, that state is unborn, it's permanent peace, amazing peace, whatever how they say, just a concept. So find out for yourself, practice, and then reach that state. Then you don't need anybody to tell you what it is. And of course, because the Buddha's teaching is great, we get loads and loads of these suttas, and everything that the Buddha says. And we are lost in this teaching. Right? It's just like giving you an encyclopedia. And then somehow or other, you got to try to figure out how to help yourself, how to develop yourself, and how to liberate yourself. And then you go and find different teachers. Of course, different teachers will tell you different things. And of course, I will tell you my way as well. But the difference is that I find out through my own practice, uh, one that is taught by the Buddha is really useful. It helped me, and I have distill it, if you like, to something simple. So it's easy for me to talk about it, and it is practical, right? So I kind of deviate from what the teaching of the Buddhas is because I've distilled it, something easy, anybody can understand. Because it must be easy for me to understand, for me to be able to practice, for me to be able to remember the practice. Simple things. I can't do with complicated things and I get lost in my thinking. I must have something simple that I understand and know how to use it. So the first thing I want to say is that the Buddha had discovered an important law. In the physical world, we have physics, laws on physical things, the relationship between two bodies, gravity, electromagnetism, and then chemistry, you have these laws of chemistry, biology, you have these laws of how cells, grow, or how plants grow. Those are natural laws, those are part of the world, So just like you mow your lawn today, next week you still have to mow your lawn, because the law, that grass will always grow, when you cut them down, and then there's a natural law, that we grow old, we grow infirm, and then we will die. That is a natural law as well. So in the mental world, the world of the mind, there is a natural law for all these mind constituents, things that we know that belongs to the mind or belongs to the consciousness or belongs to the however you want to see it, things that which really exist. Feelings exist, craving exists, hate exists. Nobody can deny that because you have a direct experience of it. You cannot say feelings do not exist. Somebody smacked you, then you will know whether feelings exist or not, right? Hate exists, greed exists, and so on. All these are mental constituents of the mind. Something that comes in within the mind. It doesn't exist out in the world. It doesn't exist in chemistry or biology. It exists within the sphere of the mind. So there is this law, two actually. The first one is, like I say, the Four Noble Truths, which it says, there is suffering. We don't see suffering because we avoid seeing suffering. As soon as we suffer, we move on, find something, thrilling to do, So we get the thrill of something and then we forget the suffering. And when we get bored, we move on again, we switch channel, we listen to different music, we go out to do different things. That's how we don't see suffering. It's because we avoid suffering, Now you're sitting there, you're suffering because you stay in one position, so you move. So there's no longer suffering. And the second most important law is the law of dependent origination. That means mental constituents, mental phenomena arises due to a previous origination, previous cause. Because of this, that happens, simple as that, independent. So this comes to be because of something that comes before. So its origination depends on what comes before. That's why I call dependent origination. Some call it now dependent arising. This arise dependent on what comes before. So I'm going to rephrase this law of dependent origination a little bit, to my way of thinking, my way of practice, So I'll say depending on contact with the mental identity, feeling arises. Depending on feeling, craving arises. Depending on craving, there is this clinging. clinging on to the object we are craving. Depending on clinging, we become angry, we become greedy, we become jealous. That is where we act. There is a self, a person that is born at that instant, right? That acts. Jealous person, an angry person, a greedy person, a spiteful person, whatever. A generous person, there's also a positive side. Right? So becoming, if you like, there is the end in this momentary law of dependent origination. The original form is depending on contact with a sense object. Feeling arises, but I have changed it dependent on mental identities. I'll explain that in a little bit. Now, so you come across that craving has a cause. There is only one cause for craving. Only one. You have to remember. Whatever you may have read, on the internet or you've heard from somebody, the Buddha tells you there is only one cause of craving. And that is the law of dependent origination. Feeling is the cause of craving, or feeling is the cause of aversion. Okay, so the opposite of craving is aversion. So feeling is the cause. There is only one cause. It's just like in a physical law, there is only one cause for the attraction of bodies, and that's gravity. There is only one cause, in the attraction or the repellation of the two magnets, and that is the magnetic force. One cause for craving. You have to remember that. Every time you have craving, there is only one cause. Keep it simple. Don't try to think about other things else. So you get the right direction. You're thinking in the right direction. That means I'm craving for something. What is the feeling that is causing this craving? Okay? So usually, or all the time, that when you have craving, there is a liking, the feeling of liking something. And then when there's aversion, there is the dislike. Okay? Now, the feeling of like and dislike also have a cause. And there is only one cause as well. You have to remember that. This is the law of dependent origination, and it works in this world of the mind. And that cause is contact with a mental identity. Right? Now, what is a mental identity? In the original teaching of dependent origination, it says that contact with a sense object. That means the sense object is the visual object, right? Or a sound, or a flavor when we taste something, or a scent. Those all are sense objects. Or something that's tactile, we touch it, right? Okay, so there are 5 of them. Well, there is also a mental object, the 6th one, which the mind thinks as an object. We will just talk about this 5. Now, the most familiar sense object is the visual object, right? So we see shapes, we see colors, and then it enters our eyes and then touch the retina, and then somehow or other, this process goes on. So I like to explain this from a baby's point of view. So baby coming into the world, will try to make sense of what the baby sees. It sees colors, it sees shapes, moving about, doesn't know what it is. She doesn't know what it is. So given a toy or even a person, the baby will try to taste it, try to eat it, or then the baby will know you can't eat these things, Then it comes to know, that there is this sound that comes from this thing. So it receives all this sense information, right? So in the baby's mind, you start creating a mental image, of the mother, right? And then in that mental image, the baby will put in, the sound, the smell, maybe the taste as well, So the baby forms this mental identity of his or her mother. Then the next time the baby sees an image similar, then of course it will try to identify. Now, to identify, the baby must have previously created a mental identity. So identifying is matching the mental identity that the baby has created with whatever that the baby sees. It is the same with them. Sometimes we see somebody from a distance, right? If you're waiting for a friend, we try to match the person who is walking, but it's similar to the mental identity that we have of our friend, the way he walks. So we do all this matching. In this matching, we use all the mental identities that we have, or the mental identity of the person we are looking for. Right? Sometimes when we are trying to look a pair of scissors in the drawer, right, we have this mental identity, that this scissors is blue in color. And we go into the drawer and start looking for a blue scissors. It is not there. Right? Because we got it wrong. The mental identity of our scissors is blue, but it's actually a red scissors. So definitely it doesn't match. We can't find the scissors, right? So when we identify things out in the world, we are matching our mental identity with things out in the world. When we have found a match for things out in the world, that match belongs to the mental identity that we have created. Mental identities are something we have created. So when we have matched our mental identity with things out in the world, what we know is not the thing out in the world. It is the mental identity that we have created. We do not know of anything out in the world when we were born. We create mental identities of things in the world, and then we say we know because of this mental identity. So once we have identified something, we project this mental identity onto the people. So what we know are not things, not people, just the mental identity we have created. How reliable is this mental identity that you have created? You have to ask yourself that question. How reliable are the mental identities all the men of the people who see the same thing? Each of us create mental identities according to our likes and dislikes, our conditioning, all the things that we know. So this mental identity is unreliable. So when you ask somebody, about something or somebody else, then they will give you their mental identity. That is all. That's all we know. What we know in this world are just mental identity. What we have created in this world. Nothing real. It's all mental constituents called mental identity. So when we have in contact with the sense object, we are actually contact with the mental identities that we have. So depending on how we create this mental identity, feeling arises. So we can have feelings of aversion. We can have feelings of liking. We have feeling of disliking. Right? And it is not surprising that different people have different feelings for a particular thing. Now, if there is any essence in a particular thing, right, like something that's solid, right, everybody would agree with that. Nobody can disagree with you that this is solid because this is an essence in itself, solidity, right? But other than that, everybody has their views and different feeling for it because those views and feelings something that is created. Okay, so that is what I meant by mental identity. Something that lives in us, something that we use it to identify things in the world. Now, this mental identity also applies to sound. We hear a voice and we know who it is because we have a mental identity of it. Or we hear a voice and we do not know. We just have to listen to music and we know who sings. And we have mental identities of music. Just hear a few notes of then we know what music it is. And taste. When we taste food, we know how good it is. What ingredients are in the food. Smell, we can know, what perfume it is. Some people can do that. Or what flowers. So all these are mental identities. You create mental identities of taste, of touch, of sound, of voice, of visual images, and scent. So some people's mental identity are very well developed because they practice, they create, like people who are interested in wine, they create mental identities to fit with the wine they are tasting, right? People who develop perfumes, they create mental identities so that they're able to identify, perfume. People who are chefs, cook, they develop mental identities so they can precisely taste something and know what it is. That's the first thing we want to know about our world. The, the world that we know exists in our own mind. So if we see a bad world, it is our own creation. If we see a good world, it is our own creation. If you see that there is something wrong in something, it is our own creation. If we see something good in something, it is our own creation. If we see something beautiful in something, it is our own creation. If you see something ugly in something, it is also our own creation. So that's one thing you want to know. That is a reality. That is the truth. Right? It is no wonder that the world is in turmoil, the world is in conflict, because everybody lives in their own. They cannot match. They build their own world according to their conditioning, according to what they have learned from their parents, from their society, from the books that they like to read, from the theories they picked up from the internet. So they have this world. We do not know the world in another person's mind until we discover it through talking to them. We do not really know somebody. We only have mental identities of them. Whatever we hear from other people, whatever we surmise from ourselves, or whatever views that we create from ourselves, from our likes or dislikes. And that's the mental identity of people. So the first thing we want to know about mental identity is that it is not sure. Which means all the things in the world that you know are prejudice, are created by yourself, are really not sure. So what you know of something is not sure that the person will see the same way. Not sure means it is something is it doesn't have an intrinsic essence. Not sure is something empty of what's good, empty of what's right, empty of what's wrong, empty of what's bad, empty of what's ugly, empty of what's beautiful. So it's empty of the opposite, good and bad, empty of what's right and wrong, empty of what's ugly and beautiful. And not sure means it is uncertain. Because what we know of something, after we know it, it may change. Right? We go out, oh, it's sunny, yeah, it's sunny. I'm going to go out in the next hour. Changes the next hour, no longer sunny. So it's not sure. Because of changes, things are not sure. So we have to live with this uncertainty. Uncertainty of what? Our knowing. Uncertainty of our own information. We can all agree on something. Okay? So now we come to what the Buddha taught. Buddha taught us that there is suffering. Yes, there is suffering. There is also a cause for suffering. There are actually two causes of suffering. It's from my own practice, I distill it to two causes. One is holding on to a mental identity, right? Which means this mental identity that I've created is causing me suffering. This is the bad person. This is the person, that's it. That's a mental identity. Or the second cause of suffering is holding on to a view. There's a view of ourselves, a view of others, right? A view of ourselves, I'm no good, or I'm not capable. That causes us suffering, A view on others, that he is my permanent enemy, right? He has something against me, right? He tries to provoke me, view on others. And the view of way things should be, you know, my life should be this way, that way, that way, that my family should be this way, that way. My friends should be this way, and that. Right? Good things should happen to me, bad things shouldn't happen to me. And that's holding on the view that the way things should be. Our view of the way things should be is just a view. The way things turn out, depending on causes and events in the world. It has nothing to do with our thinking, nothing to do with our view. So it is just a coincidence that our views and the way things turn out are exactly the same or similar. That's just coincidence as well. Well, you might say, I'm lucky, I know the causes. You do not know the causes. There's so many causes in the world that leads to an event, right? If you say not try to predict what the question for the next paper is like, next examination paper. Try to predict what your interview that's coming up is going to be like. We do not really know. We can form views, what the examination question is going to be like. You can form views what the interview is going to be. That are views. Nothing to do what's going on in the world. So that's the way things should be. Holding on. And holding on to views of things. Yeah. Right. Like we say, well, this is an antique, and if somebody says that, no, this is not antique, this is just rubbish, just junk, maybe 100 years old, just junk, but no, this is antique, and that causes suffering. So holding on to things, on the view of things, and holding on to the view. The way things should be like, oh, we must all sweep, from the inside of the house, from the left side to the right side, and so on. View on the way we should do things, how we should wash the place. Simple things like that. We can't give them how we should do a particular job. If somebody wants to do it differently, we dislike it. We don't, no, that's not the way, not efficient, whatever. So that causes conflict. right? So we want to know that the cause of this conflict or the cause of suffering is holding on to views. We want to know they are just views. Their views, your views. You can give up your views if it doesn't break the five precepts. The five precept is the bottom line. You can keep up the view. Maybe then 5% less efficient, but the person is happier to do it his way. You don't have to have it your way all the time. We give, we are generous. This promote practice of generosity, giving people the opportunity to do it their way. Yes, we lose a little bit of ego. Huh? We lose a little bit of what we want to do. We lose a little bit of time. Doesn't matter, right? Generous. So every time when we suffer, right, it is because we hold on to mental identities or views. Every time we are happy, very happy, it is also we are holding on to mental identity and views, and they are not substantial. So the cause of our happiness are not from something that's substantial. Just views and mental identity. The cause of our suffering are also just mental identities and views. So don't be ecstatic, you're happy, because of these views and this mental identity. They're empty. You can compare to the extreme, the people living in the asylum, they're happy, right? Because of their view or the mental identity of who they are. You think they're Jesus Christ or Napoleon Bonaparte, or whatever it is, So just views. So yeah, it's slightly better than the lunar thing in a sense, but we still hold on to mental identities and views as real. That's where we are not normal. If we are normal, then we know these are just mental identities. These are just views. What's there to be sad about it? What's there to be happy about it? And we reach equanimity, right? We're not pulled by this way. We're not pushed another way. We don't crave for something. We are not adverse to something because of our views. So we have to understand this Dhamma, this phenomenon, this fact that all that we know of things in the views in the world are just mental identity. The fact that we hold on to these mental identities and view causes us suffering because it's going to clash with somebody else. The fact that craving arises is due to feeling. The feeling arises due to contact with the mental identity that we have created. So the world we live in is our own world of mental identities. Right? The cause of craving is just feeling which we have determined from our mental identity. So everything points back to the mental identity. Everything points towards views. And these two things are not substantial. They are created from our conditioning. But the most important thing is this present moment now. The future is just an imagination. The past is a living moment that no longer exists. Now is the karmic moment. That is, now is the time where we create the future. So whatever you want to do, it is now. If you can plan about things in the future, but to act now, right? But it's no point going thinking about the past once you have learned the lesson. Right? No point living in the past. Replay the memories. There is no point. There's no reason to get ecstatic, happy, or sad about things in the past. Because we are replaying the emotion. Because now is a karmic moment. Now is the moment we create the future. Or now is the moment we create the next move. So our future, our lives depends on what we do now. And the most just thing is you don't go and sit for your examination paper, and then you know what happens. You don't go for your interview, and then you know what happens. So you prepare for your examination now. You prepare for your interview now. That makes the difference. No point thinking what the interview is going to be like. No point thinking what the examination question is going to be difficult or easy. So whatever that our mind thinks, we want to say it is not sure. Right? So not sure makes our mind unable to hold on to anything, to hold on to a position to argue. So not sure is very important. Not sure means it teaches two aspects which the Buddha teaches. The aspect of anatta, which is all things do not have an essence. The aspect of anicca, all things are impermanent. So not sure contains these two elements in it. And by using not sure, we can use the right element to tackle the problem we are having. And those two may come up as well, right? So if you're thinking what's going to happen in tomorrow, it's not sure, right? Because they change, because we don't really know, right? How our life is going to turn out. Not sure. What my future profession is going to be like. Not sure. But we have an aim. We work towards an aim. We can do that. Halfway might change our mind. Or karma, might prevent us from doing what we want to do. So it's all not sure, but we have a plan. Right? We act on that plan. Okay, I'm going to stop here now and take questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Tanaja, for the talk. Um, it was very insightful. Thank you so much. Yeah, if you have questions, feel free to ask, and I will allow everyone to. Yeah, feel free to unmute and ask also if we don't have many participants. Tanajan, maybe I will ask a question. when the mental identity is so strong, sometimes it may be hard to break it down by not sure. How do we practically deal with when the attachment or aversion is so strong?
You see, sometimes when our mental identity is so strong, especially about a person, we really believe that person is nasty to us. Supposing we think this action is very strong, we believe this person is nasty to us. So we cannot say not sure. Right? We won't believe. But we can do one thing. We can say, yes, he is nasty, but not sure. Yes means we admit he is nasty to us, but not sure means we are not sure whether he's going to be nasty to us in the future. In that way, our mind can accept it. You have to try that. Right? So when you come to mental identity, which is strong, you cannot use not sure. You say yes, but not sure. And which is the true state of things. We don't really know that the person is going to be nasty to us in the future because he has been nasty to us in the past. Now, he may be nasty to us in the past. He may regret it and not do it again. Right? So it is difficult to say not sure to a nasty person, but we can say, yes, he's nasty, but not sure. Okay? Keep doing that. Okay, Himanda?
Yes, done, Ajahn. Thank you so much. That's really practical, very useful advice. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, hi, Ajahn. So, what is ego, and where is ego stands between creating mental identity and creating views? What is
Yes.
where is ego stands for between creating views and creating mental identities?
Mental identity applies to things. Mental identity contains views. Mental identity is much more complex than views. You see, uh, mental identity is associated with identification, right? So mental identity can come in the form of something which you do not have is the sound of things. Yeah. So the visual image, the scent, the taste, right, and the tactile sensation, right. This is something we know that we can create views on it. Right. Mental identities. We have to have mental identities of a voice. That is not a view. Right. When we listen to a voice, we know who it is. That's not a view. When we listen to a voice, we know it is an angry voice. Or it is a lovable voice. We know. Right. Right. That is can come from a view. Right. But when we listen to it, there is this element in it. Right. We can identify that voice, then we can match it, whether it's angry, or is it a passive voice, or is it a lovable voice. But in itself, it contains elements which we have kept. Visual images, we see somebody, it's just like, you've not seen a friend for 15 years, and then suddenly he comes and then you see it doesn't match your mental identity. But certain things doesn't change. The way he walks, his voice doesn't change. But his visual image is different. Then you say, what happens to him? He grows old, right? But your mental identity of him hasn't changed, hasn't grown old. So say, what happened to you? Nothing happened to him. It's just that nothing happens to your mental identity. Okay. There are times when there's, of course, a mismatch of mental identity. We identify the wrong person, but that's different. But the most common thing is, our mental identity um, doesn't grow. It's just like your mother's mental identity of you never changes, never changes. Treats you the same way as well, right? They don't update their mental identity because they don't see you at work. They don't see how you were, what you are. They just know this is who you are. From the time you have a snotty nose, to the time when you learn to ride a bicycle, that's the mental identity. Very strong. So when I became a monk, my mother has two mental identities. She knows me as a monk as well as her son, two different names, Somehow though she knows there's a connection. She knows. But still she talks about two different persons. By that time she's about 80 years old and but I understand that, I don't try to tell her, that both of these are the same person. It doesn't matter. Instinctively she knows they are the same person. But somehow they are just two mental identities. And just interesting how the mind works. Okay, so the thing with mental identity is very rich. See, mental identity can contain histories, right? Stories, views, images, sounds, and everything in it, feelings in it. Mental identity has we put feelings in. As soon as somebody comes in, there is hate. As soon as somebody comes in, there is love. And that's because of the mental identity, the strong mental identity we have created. You know how people develop phobias? That's all mental identity is. Nothing more than that. Nothing more. Very strong mental identity. Even hearing the sound of it create this feeling, this phobia, very strong mental. And if the person, you can say that supposing a person has a phobia about, say, a spider, they have this mental identity what a spider look like. But you have a spider which doesn't quite look like a spider, then she wouldn't have a phobia of it. Then she might think it's cute or whatever. But as soon as she suspects it's a spider, then everything comes out. The same thing when we mistake a rope for a snake, all the fear comes out. Let's misidentify. So whatever's out there, we don't know. Is it rope? Is it a snake? It doesn't matter what it is. It's what our mental identity, what we take it for. Okay. So if you understand these 6 dhammas that I taught you, then you will hold less onto the things of the world. When you hold less of views and mental identity, then there is less suffering. Yeah. There's less conflict. Then when there's less suffering and conflict, you can pay attention to what needs doing most. That's the most important thing in this present moment, to do what needs doing, not what needs to be done, what needs to. Okay, those are urgent things. what needs to. If you have to go to the toilet, you have to go to the toilet. If you have to prepare for the examination, you have to prepare for the examination, right? So if your aversion comes up, say not sure to whatever that creates that aversion. Or you have to prepare for an interview, you have an aversion to it, then you say not sure to whatever views, that is that you have that creates the aversion. Okay. Any more questions?
I wonder whether Tanajan could explain a bit about the difference between what needs doing and what needs to be done.
And what needs to be done comes from our mindfulness and clear comprehension of this situation. That's what needs doing. It comes from clear comprehension, clearly comprehending a situation, right? So when we walk and then we see, oh yes, there's this piece of glass on the floor, right? And we know that needs to be taken care of, right? We have to clear that piece of glass. This is what needs doing. What needs to be done is that we start listing of the things that we want to do, right? That comes from our desire or our aversion. So what we are adverse to, comes into our list as well. Oh, this needs to be done. I need to wash my clothes. I need to wash my car. I need to wash the patio, things you haven't done, right? But if you look, I go and see, oh, this patio is dirty. It is shameful. It needs doing, right? Then you go on and do it. Right? So it comes from clearly knowing, right? Comes from clear comprehension. So what needs to be done comes from, things we have procrastinated, all those things, we can list a lot of things, but what we have to do is have the mindfulness and know what needs to be done from clear comprehension. So that's the difference. One comes from wisdom, the other comes from aversion or desire. And also the thing is that what needs to be done, because it comes from desire or aversion or desire, it's you don't, sometimes it doesn't need doing it all, right? Because we want to do it. So we say if we put it priority, it needs to be done. I must go and get my new iPhone. I must get a new dress, new shoes or something, a new hi-fi system, you see. See, this is comes from desires. Okay.
Okay, Tanajan, that's very clear. So even if we haven't done something in the past, what needs doing is not regretting about it, but doing what we can do now, right?
Yes. Yes. From contemplating, we come to know what needs doing. Okay. So if you contemplate, that this is the future you want, this is what needs doing. Just now, like I'm contemplating of building a monastery, so I need to create posters, right? All needs to be done. And then Himanta is helping me out, you're getting an ebook on this Dhamma Toolkits. This needs doing, so it's part of the process. So through contemplation, then we know what needs to do it. And then we do it now. So our priority is what needs to do it. So if you have to go to the toilet, that's more important than anything else. You have to go and see a doctor, that is more important than anything else. So Saturday I'm going for my going to see a doctor about my cataract, So that needs doing. Saturday, come Saturday. Okay, so what is doing comes from wisdom. The wisdom comes from clearly comprehending. Clear comprehension. Clear comprehension is a faculty that arises through mindfulness. Okay. It's difficult to explain things. You have to practice mindfulness and then learn to wait for this clear comprehension to arise and then to know what needs doing. It's a direct experience of these things. It's not kind of going through a process of thinking. You get clear comprehension and clear insight. No, it's not thinking. It doesn't come. It comes naturally by itself through awareness in this sense. Okay. So that's why we have to develop our mind through meditation, so we can have stronger mindfulness, stronger concentration, which develops faster clear comprehension and insight. Okay, so this is the Buddha start, the self-help, self-development, and then self-liberation. So that's the last part. When you have developed yourself, then I teach you self-liberation. Okay, any question?
If the online participants have any questions, feel free to unmute and ask. Seems there are no questions, Tanajan.
Okay, then I'll say a little blessings and then we can all sign up. Bhautu sabba mangalang rakantu sabba devata sabba bhuta nupavena sataso di bhavantu devata sabba mangalang rakantu sabba devata sabba dhamma nupavena sataso di bhavantu te bhavatu sabba mangalang rakantu sabba devata Sabasang Havena Satan Soti Bhavantu Te.
Sad. Thank you so much, Tanajan, for giving the very insightful and practical teachings. They were really helpful for us. Thank you so much for waking up early at 4 o'clock in the morning to give us teachings. And we will see next Wednesday. We have a creative modeling workshop with Tanajan next Wednesday. So everyone join us next Wednesday also. Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, good night then.